Hello everybody, I hope that you are all doing well today. It is Apex here with another watch list video. So today I'll be covering the 5 tickers you see on the right hand side of your screen: Nnox, LAZR, ZM, and PTON. Before I get started, I will begin by saying that none of what you hear or see today is financial advice. It is purely for educational purposes, and you should never follow anyone in a trade blindly. So without further ado, let's get right into it, starting with Nnox, Nano-X Imaging. So this is a new X-ray company, and I know it's kind of weird thinking about X-rays, but it's a more of exciting and eccentric way for taking X-ray photos. So using nanotechnology, Nano-X has developed a silicon chip that distributes the task of creating electrons across 100 million digitally controlled nanocones. Now, essentially what this means, from my understanding, is it's just a very efficient way of producing an X-ray image. The traditional method uses, as I'm sure most of you know, big massive machine that needs time to heat itself up, cool itself down. Nano-X image device basically just makes that whole process much more efficient and for a fraction of the price, and it looks pretty cool as well. So investors are excited about this, but it does have a little ways to go before coming into fruition. It's still, I don't think it's approved by the FDA, but there has been a submission to see if it can be approved. So, investors are a little bit excited about this stock, but it is setting up very well technically. So, as you can see here, the first indicator I always look for is volume. So we see a lot of bull volume accumulation on this impulse move to the upside. And even in here, we do have this big red candle bar, but we do notice that it has a long lower wick. So although we have the big red volume node, it does show a little bit of bullishness, and then we have bull volume accumulation in other price action zones as well. So overall, there is that bullish sentiment behind the company. As you can see, we have a strong impulse wave to the upside, nice pullback to around the 618 golden ratio, and bouncing lovely off of the 21 EMA, bit of a holy grail setup here. On Friday, we saw an uptick in volume as well, as bulls broke over the high with a nice bullish candle. So looking for an entry tomorrow. As I said in the slideshow, what I'm looking for is a buying. I want to look to buy into a bullish intraday pattern. Essentially, I am watching that break of the high. I won't chase a gap up, but if we can see a pullback, buy a dip type play, red to green move, bull flag intraday, anything like that, that will give me a trigger, since I believe this bounce is already underway, and I can just gauge it by an intraday perspective for entering. I am expecting a lower high compared to 94.81. This is a bit of a steep pullback again to the golden ratio, so that does likely mean we will see that lower high. So looking for around a $90 target. So that could give about a 20-point move, which would be very, very generous. Moving on to EH, so eHang Holdings. This one's pretty cool. This is a flying taxi service. So the maker of flying electric vehicles, aka air taxis. So that's what the prototype looks like here. So yeah, I mean, it's a pretty eccentric, very cool new millennial type company coming to fruition, and expectedly it is getting some attention from investors. So they received a $40 million investment from Carvigenic. I butchered that name. But some company is investing into this company. So it does show that there is some investors who are curious about where this type of industry should go. I think from a short-term perspective, with a setup this good, it will be a nice trade to take. So looking at it from a technical perspective, again, we see huge amounts of bull volume accumulation. Now we can see, just based off this, without even looking at the fundamentals, as I say time and time again, that there is interest behind this type of service. There's excitement from investors, and that is reflected by the high levels of bull volume that we see throughout this entire price action. So from a technical perspective, we get a beautiful impulse wave to the upside, nice controlled pullback to the downside on very low volume. We get a bounce. The most likely outcome is a lower high compared to 99.98. And we see a nice pullback again on decreasing volume here. And now on the Friday candle, a little bit of a hammer candle set. What are we looking for? We are looking for this equilibrium to tighten up, which is exactly what it's doing. So I would think that this is an indication that the higher low is set compared to 64.10. So looking for a break of the high of Friday. Looking for essentially another bullish pattern intraday. So similar to Nnox, I do believe that this bounce is set, so I will be looking for some sort of bullish pattern, a red to green, a bull flag, etc. intraday to enter into the position, or essentially just a break of Friday's high being 78.23. So if we see that momentum, I would expect continuation to the upside. This pattern is much more defined than Nnox was. As you can see, we already set that lower high and appear to have set the higher low. So I would expect this equilibrium to break to the upside, targeting the 110 psychological level just above this pivot high. Not quite to the Fibonacci extensions, but we will see how much momentum it gets, or any, if all. Next ticker on the agenda, LAZR. This is one that I have been talking about extensively, and it's just taking its sweet time getting going. I won't go into the fundamentals too much. Essentially, the LiDAR company, very important for automated driving, and as vehicles continue to integrate that automated technology, and there's the prospect of ride-share programs turning to autonomous vehicles like Uber and Lyft, obviously LiDAR is going to be very important. So this company does have a lot of fundamental excitement around it. As you can see, that is reflected by the high bull volume that we see throughout this price development. So right now we are ranging in a beautiful little equilibrium here, tightening ever so much. Lots of good interactions off the 21 EMA. So what I see here is I see a strong impulse from 29.50 to 40.98, and then we have a higher low set at 31.25. As you can see, price is starting to curl upwards, showing that there is a bullish inclination, consistently closing above the 21 EMA, forming a nice volume shelf here, so we're bouncing off of that very well. And as you can see, on Thursday and Friday we had increasing bull volume, so although they are a little bit wiki doji candles, it does show based off this curling pattern you can see here and the increased volume, as well as the other underlying technical and fundamental traits, that it appears we are looking for upside continuation. So I said in the slideshow, again, looking for a bullish pattern intraday. This technique does require to see first daily confirmation. Once we believe that we have daily confirmation, then we look for intraday patterns to develop. Now I believe futures was up, so I guess I should have mentioned this earlier in the video, but hopefully if you're still watching, you'll get it now anyways. There is, I believe futures had a bullish open to the day, so we are expecting a gap up tomorrow. So don't chase that gap up, wait for a pattern to set and before entering. But yeah, overall, based off this impulse wave, the volume, and every other factor, I would expect continuation from here. So my target is ultimately the $50 psychological level. It is just above the previous all-time high, but I do believe based off all the volume that we can get there. I will likely take a big chunk of profit at that 47.80 range, probably just below 47.40 or something like that. But overall, LAZR looks like it could be finally breaking to the upside. So Zoom, another stock that I have been watching extensively, coming out of this descending pattern here. So obviously we know the fundamentals of Zoom. It has become a quintessential service in our lives, both work, school, family, because of the pandemic. So there's obviously a lot of importance, thus high levels of value that's reflected in its steep price. We can see that also reflected in the high levels of bull volume that we see throughout this price development. So Zoom was in a multi-month daily downtrend and finally began basing right around the 330s. So we see a double, not quite a double bottom, a divergence bottom, oversold conditions, higher low, lower high. Strong impulse wave to the upside, nice pullback, reclaimed that 21 EMA and broke out over the 404.44 level, confirming that daily trend change. So I will be looking for an entry right around that 404.44 level, probably around 406. Hopefully we can get a fill there, or any intraday pattern as it may develop. Targeting on this ticker, targeting will be that 575 psychological range. So right around the previous all-time high top, looking to scale out some profit after making an extensive gain if we can realize that move. But Zoom looking very explosive as we finally begin to bottom and change the daily uptrend. And lastly, PTON. So PTON just had earnings release. As you can see in the highlighted section, the company booked revenue of $1.06 billion, up 120% on a year-over-year basis. They had a high number of subscribers this year, so there is an extreme demand for this stock as people love an iPad on a bike. But for whatever reason, it is turning into the go-to for at-home fitness. And it is setting up very well technically. So we can see, again, the high levels of bull volume accumulation, illustrating that institutional demand for the product. We had a strong impulse wave to the upside, bounce off the 21 EMA, higher high, higher low, lower high, lower low, higher high, lower high, and now it appears that we have made a higher low. So we have this bottom impulse wave to the upside, topped out at 157.83, and now the bulls are trying to make a high low compared to 139.02. And with a strong doji candle like that, big lower wick, after having a bullish earnings release and high volume here, although it's a red node, that big lower wick does give me conviction that the bulls are in control. I will look for an intraday pattern to break over Friday's high of 151.79 in order to see continuation to the upside. Ultimately, the target will be this first Fibonacci extension, 185.85, once we clear this upward resistance right in the lower 170s. So I hope you all enjoyed the video today. Have yourselves a fabulous week of trading, and I will talk to you later.